So we have a quote, and then there's quote with the site attribute, and then there's block quote for a big quote with the site attribute, and then there's the element site, just when you want to say, hey, this is, I'm citing something here. All right, so you could use that element. And then you could have the block quote with the cite attribute, and inside that block quote, you could cite some source. Use the cite element. Okay, so don't be confused by there's an attribute which is cite, and there's an element which is cite. The attributes used with block quote and the quote, the Q elements, and then cite you just use as an element to say, hey, this is a citation right here. Ian Fleming in Casino Royale. So that was kind of nice to just look through. And then we have background gradients. And do you want me just to show you the good stuff? Oh, actually the good stuff's a little bit further up. You ready for the good stuff? So looping video in the background. Everything could be on top. It's full page. Right?
You're putting words in your mouth.
Who's putting words in my mouth? It's actually a little bit bigger than full page. I got to fix that. Yeah, there's no audio. I took the audio out. I said mute the audio. So we'll see that in a second. So they just kind of went through the background stuff. Background, orange, red, right? Body background color. Stuff we already know. I thought this was interesting, all of the color names. Blanched almond, chartreuse, cornflower blue, I don't know, misty rose. Interesting color names. Very bright. We've already seen background image, but I just did these to reflect on all that. So the CSS is background image and then some image, right? So what if that's a small image? This is going to repeat because we didn't say no repeat. And then you could take that repeat off with no repeat. Hopefully you're all like, this is review. And we could position it, X, Y. I don't know which one I just opened. Let me make sure I'm opening the right one. So 500 pixels by 100 pixels. So yeah, came over 500, it came down 100, X, Y. So background position. And then another background position. You could do 100%, 0. So you could do pixels, right, or percent. And so here are the ways that with background position, right, top left, left top, right bottom, left bottom. And you can do the shorthand. So this is the background color. This is the image. This is the XY. And no repeat. So this is going to put it in the X 100%, Y 0, top right corner. So that's just the shorthand. How many people, when you look at the shorthand now, that gels for you a little bit more? than when we were first getting started with it. It's like color, image, XY, don't repeat it. Cool. You could do a little bar like that. Your submission has been received. And the CSS on that is there. Background, color, image, it's an SVG. X, Y, don't repeat. And then border, border radius, color, font family, padding. We know all that. And that's around the div with the class complete. So you can play with, hey, well, what happens if I have 0, 0 here? Which that probably defaults to 0, 0 if I just take those out. So you can see it just put in the top left. But instead, I add those in, and it's like x, come over 10, -7. Huh, that seems like it should just be 7. -7 brought down. What happens if it's just 7? Only came down 7. -7, that's interesting. I'm not quite sure why that worked. Maybe instead we could bring it down 30. Oh, that took it up. Right? 50. 35, sorry, 50. So what if we're -50? All right, so -7 seemed to be the right one. I thought that Y brought you down from up above. Wasn't that what we were seeing before? Even though what we're seeing now, kind of, when we looked at that little, this one here, 500, 100, over 5, down 1, right? It wasn't down -100. What happens if we're down -100? Now here it's going up, and that's background position just out on its own. So I'm just curious if we just use shorthand. Same position, right? Isn't that wacky? Doesn't it seem like one's doing it one way, the other's doing it the other way? Because here we have, oh, -100 brought it down. Oh, that's right. And then negative, there it is, -7 brought it down. All right, did I confuse you? So the negative brings it down. True in life. And then here is that check again, but I did it with Inline Svg. So to do that, here's the SVG thing with XML/NS, and the style, display none, and then symbol and ID and the view box, and then just the path saying this SVG. And I could use that right here with SVG class, right? And give it a class. It's just that's the CSS, and then use, and then here's the ID. So it goes for this check, gets that one right here, right? Those are connected. Those two checks are connected. So that puts an SVG right in front of your submission has been received, and then the CSS on that is HTML font size 1 VW. Wish I could use that in production. Padding, margin, height for HTML body. That's full page. Body, display, flex, justify content, line items. Put it all in the middle. And then icon, which is this, And we have the width and the height are 1em. So look to my parent container and give me one of those, whatever, right, the font size is. And that'll be the width and height of this icon. And vertical line shifted down just a little. And fill color is current color, or fill's current color. So that's just kind of like what we learned with SVG, that little template so that we could style it with CSS. And it'll pick up the color of whatever the CSS container, whatever the container is, right? And then we have a complete, this class for the whole div. And so we arrange it with display flex, justify content, flex start, align item center. So flex directions row, primary axes is row. And we're saying put everything over on the left, start at the left, flex start, because justify content operates along the primary axes, which is a row, horizontal. And align items is center. So vertically it gets aligned center along the vertical axes. All right? And you can see what would happen if we took these off. No vertical align center. A little bit of a shift there, right? Let's just put it back on. See that? And then I'm going to format the whole div there. So color is white. That's the font. Take that off. See what happens. And font size is 4rem. Font family, padding. Background color. Pretty important. Border and border radius, 5 pixels. So a little bit of a round on the corners. And then icon. I don't know. I don't think I need fill white for icon white right here, because icon says pick up the color of my container, and the color of my container is white. So I'm going to take that off. See what happens. Still white. So I can get rid of that. And if I wanted to, I could play with stroke black and stroke width. And I could like bump that up if I wanted. And I do stroke line join round, which rounds it. Font size 5.2. Take that off. Put it back on. Right, so that gave it a little bit of a larger font. And padding right, 1rem. So that just brings it off the edge of the text some.
If you're seeing gradient on there, I'm thinking like a gradated background. What is that?
Oh, did I say gradient?
I thought you did somewhere in there.
Yeah, we're going to look at gradient here in a minute. We're going to look at gradient in a minute. I don't know what I was talking about if I said gradient, because there's no gradient on here yet. You could watch this video and then like email me and say, right there, at 8 minutes and 32 seconds, you said gradient. You didn't know what you're talking about, did you? And I'll be like, you're right, I didn't know what I was talking about. Words just come out of my mouth. I'm not even paying attention. I get paid just to come in here and push air through my vocal cords and make my mouth do this. I have no idea what it's saying. So this one, how's this one different? So there's a gradient. You see it? A little bit of a gradient. So how do we get that gradient? And we're starting to move into background gradient right there. Background gradient. This whole thing's called background gradients, but all we've been doing is reviewing background. Right? And finally we're at background gradient right here. So how do we do the background gradient? The HTML is all the same. And background gradient's right here. And it's we could go look it up on MDN. But basically you just do background, linear gradient, and add in colors to be a gradient between. So you could add another color in here. This is my favorite effect. Sorry, I need a comma. That's looking good. What? No takers? And different ones you can play with. So I just put them all here. Three. To the right. To the right. See, to the right. 3 colors to the right. To the right bottom. Angled. Radial gradient from the center out like a circle. 3 colors radial gradient. Yeah. Your submission has been received, and then unfortunately the sun went supernova and exploded, and this is kind of my visual representation of the universe being destroyed. So that background linear gradient, that's just the background shorthand property, isn't it? Like what would happen if we did, what's another background thing that we could add in there? Doesn't like that. Linear gradient. So let's just look at background image. Background image, background shorthand. And that's background, and the background gradient is just background too. But I guess if you're using gradient, it nullifies some of the other ones, but it's both background. Background linear gradient, these are all backgrounds. All right, audio, so a bunch of files. And here's the license for very massive. Let me just show this. So you go to Free Music Archive and search for songs, and then it's people who are good artists but have never made it commercially, so they give their stuff away free. And they have a Creative Commons license that says you could use this, but you have to give credit attribution. You can't use it for commercial purposes, and you have to share what you create with it under the same license. Cool. So I could use that for non-commercial purposes, so long as I give them credit, which now gives me permission on YouTube to do this. Wait for it. And then here comes the high frequency, the high pitch, like sugar frosting on top of the cake. Here it comes. It's pretty good. I like it. Where's the, there it is. I'm just going to pause the video because I got to share one more song with you by him. Cool. So that was all you got to do is audio, and then you can look up an MDN and notice like we got 2 days left. I'm not going to MDN for you. You can go to MDN and read the docs. You know how to do that now, right? But one of the attributes is controls, meaning put the controls in there. I don't know if WebStorm will do this, but you know, ID, I guess there's a bunch of stuff in there, ARIA stuff, whatever. Go to MDN. But the CSS is just center that. There's nothing fancy in the CSS. So putting audio on a page is super easy. Just make sure that you have the rights to use it. And then I did a little JavaScript for fun. Play the audio. Increase the volume. Decrease the volume. Increase the volume. So buttons. And then to do that, it's just document query selector demo. So give me whatever has that ID. Dot play. Dot pause. Dot volume plus equals 0.1. Plus equals means take this variable and whatever its value is, add that much more to it. So it's equivalent to writing, like in programming, I could write x equals 7, and I could do x equals x plus 2. Now x equals 9. This is math. This is a declaration assignment. This is an assignment, okay? So I'm assigning to x the value of x plus 2. All right? If you don't know programming, you're like, x does not equals x plus 2. X equals x. Like, I know enough math that that's not right. Right? But if it's programming, it's like, no, that's an assignment. This is the math over here. Take x, add 2 to it, assign it to x. And you can write that in many programming languages like this. So they just have you write plus equals or minus equals. So that was that's how you do that one, to get the volume to go up and down. Then I just added one more deal in there so we could see it. So you can see how much you're decreasing the volume or increasing the volume. Don't you want to hear the blink, blink? It's like, oh, I got to wait for the blink, blink. So you can look through this JavaScript, see how you can do it. Or you want me to walk you through it right now? I'll walk you through it right now. A little preview of what you get if you take Rio's class in the fall. And you should take my class, Go Programming Web Development also.
What time is your class?
I think it's Wednesday night. Yeah, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 4 hours. And
What's the name of your class?
CIT 90, data-driven websites.
If we work with you this summer, will we get credit?
No,
Oh.
no, but you will grow. All right, so that's audio. We'll look at video on the next video. I'm going to stop this video and start another one.